Konnichiwa, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to the Motorsport.tv Super GT preview show. We have so much to talk about after the recent race at Suzuka. I'm Jake Sanson. With me, as always, is Jamie Klein, and we are joined by a very special guest, Ronnie Quintarelli himself. Hello, Ronnie. Great to be with you.
Hello to everyone. Bye-bye. Konnichiwa.
It's great to have you on the show. We've got so much to talk about. Jamie, a fabulous race at Suzuka. Sadly, I couldn't make it in the box. Scott Woodward filling in perfectly during that race, but I did manage to watch it back. What an absolute thriller, and a very, very tough race, a very competitive one.
Yeah, well, you weren't the only one, because my connectivity issues at Suzuka meant I wasn't in the box for very long either over the course of 2 days. But yeah, really good race there, especially for Honda to get the first victory of 2023, courtesy of the ARTA team of Nirei Fukuzumi and Hiroki Otsu. I think that was always a question of when that was going to happen rather than if, just because of the strength of that team. And of course, for Honda to go half the season, that win is also quite rare. So good for them to get their monkey off the back. And we saw a great race in GT300 as well, with Honda doing the double, which I think you even mentioned on the previous preview show. You asked the question, could they do the double? Because we were talking about GT500, and Team Up Garage comes along and manages to get the job done in GT300 as well. So a real banner day for the Sakura market at their home track, and for the last time for the NSX GT at Suzuka.
I'm quite annoyed now, actually, that I didn't run out to the bookies and put some money on it, because I could have had a very nice return for my investment there. But yeah, a massive thank you to our understudies, Scott Woodward and Jens Sabotto. Great to have them on comms last time. But Ronnie, for you guys, a very thrilling race. I mean, P2 after a very tough weekend. Unfortunately, it all got away after the fact. However, for a race like that finishing in P2, when you've got so much hard work, you and Sugio obviously working very hard to get to the podium, it's always a very satisfying result.
Yes, that's right. Especially for us returning Suzuka after round 3. As all of you know, we had our car had a huge crash with my teammate Matsuda Tsugio, and we had a kind of mixed feeling coming back to that circuit, to the same circuit. Especially for Tsugio, I was not sure, especially mentally, he could have been back to push himself to the until the limit, But I was very surprised already from qualifying day. From Q1, Tsugio did a very good job. He was P3 in Q2. Did a good lap as well. We just missed the pole position for just by a little. And in the race, we had a strong race. We had the pace even to win. There was at the early stage of the race one FCY that worked in good way for the Honda number 16, and we lost some few seconds there. But still it was a very good weekend for us.
I'm kind of glad you brought it up, Ronnie, because I was going to ask about the sort of the mentality of Sugio coming into this race after the accident. It's interesting that you kind of bring it up. I was wondering, based on watching the race back and knowing how nervous there might have been in terms of a reaction coming into this weekend, that first full course yellow that really changed the course of the race, was that really for you guys when the race sort of transformed, when it turned on its head, when you kind of put those worries to the back of your mind, or was it always looking pretty positive even before that point?
I was just behind the Honda's car in that moment. When I saw them pitting in, honestly, I thought, wow, that's a great strategy. I mean, good timing for them to gain seconds. In that situation, usually it's easy to gain like 30, 40 seconds. But because it was just after, I think, since the start of the race, just after 6 laps, with those high track temperatures, at the same time, I was thinking that maybe they might have they might struggle to manage their tires life, because they were going to have 2 very long stints, and I was still keeping positive inside the car, we might have the chance to come back at the late stage of the race, and as you could see during the race, we came back up until we were the checker flag, I think 10 seconds behind them. we were just missing like the chance to fight back with them just for a few seconds. So even that FCY was working very well for them, I was keeping, as team, we were really positive that we could have the chance to come back to fight for the victory.
And we talk about the FCY. Jamie, this time, obviously, we usually have a lot of focus on GT500, but this time in the GT300 race, the full course yellow was so instrumental on really shaking up the race in GT300. It massively made things come together for the Up Garage NSX team, but not just for them either.
Yeah, that's right. I think we had 3 full course yellows over the course of the race. No safety cars this time, so just sort of minor incidents. The first, the one that really that decided the GT500 race was when the Team Le Mans Audi shed its wheel, got stuck in the gravel. So that's what allowed Hiroki Otsu into the pits to gain. I think it was a 42-second lead over Quintarelli when the stop shook out. So for them to get within 10 seconds while the finish was quite an impressive comeback. And actually, it's worth mentioning that Otsu was having to aggressively fuel save during that second stint. He actually said that he was short by about 2 or 3 laps, and he had to save that throughout his stint. So a real heroic effort by Otsu to get far enough into the race to hand over to Nirei Kazumi, who was able to take it to the end. But yeah, like you mentioned in GT300, I think it was the full course yellow caused by another car losing a wheel, this time a Kondo Racing Nissan, João Paulo de Oliveira. Very scary moment on the back straight leading to 130R. The car just suddenly shed its right rear wheel, and that prompted a full course yellow that then allowed the Up Garage Honda and the J-Lock Lamborghini, the 87 car, into the pits. So that turned out to be a huge benefit for them. Up until that point, it looked like it could be the number 2 Inging Toyota or the Subaru were looking the strongest. They were also on diverging strategies. We had the Subaru on the very conventional strategy of splitting the stops at even intervals. We had the number 2 car, as usual, going for the early splash and then kind of splitting the difference. But it was the 87 and the 18 cars that had left those second stops slightly later. We were able to get them done just before the full course yellow came out, and then they of course reaped the benefits. And it was the 18 that jumped ahead in the pits. It was actually the 87 Lamborghini that was ahead of the 2. But it was the 18 car that got out of the pits first, Shun Koide on board, and he had to defend hard from Kosuke Matsura, the veteran, in the Lamborghini until the finish. And that's the second win of the season for Team Up Garage after their victory at Okayama. They didn't score any other points in the interim, so they're on a very nice round, 40 points, 2 times 20 for their 2 wins. And that puts them joint in the lead of the championship with Seiji Ara in the team study BMW.
So fascinating stuff, and we'll talk about that and the consequences of that in a little more detail. Roddy, I want to come back to you a little bit about the post-race issues for the team. Obviously, we're sitting here talking about how brilliant the Cruise race was in second position. Ultimately, from your guys' perspective, you should only be 9 points behind Chio and Takaboshi in the championship. Instead, you're 24. But there are 3 races still to go. The car is clearly strong. You still have high hopes, I guess, to get back into this title fight with Sugo, Autopolis and Motegi still to go.
Yes, that's right. It was, as you said, just after the race, I was doing the same calculation as you did. I thought we are like 9 points behind, and we will still have the chance in Sugo to close up even more the gap, considering Sugo will be the last race with full success ballast in the car. And it was just before I was leaving the circuit. It was around 7 o'clock in the night when I was at the circuit. It's very funny because I called my cameraman before leaving the circuit. I was asking for him to send me some picture, and they said, maybe you are not available to use the picture of the podium. He told me straight away. I said, why? Maybe some regulation change, or I'm not sure. And they said, because, your car is under investigation, and it seems the scrutiny is not going well, he told me. I said, oh, are you kidding me? And at the same point, I think after 10 seconds in front of me, our track engineer, Nakajima-san, he appeared, and his face was not really bright. And he told me sorry straight away. Yeah, and at that moment, I understood that we lost our second position. And yes, our car in Suzuka really look very strong. In the previous race in Fuji, after the Suzuka crash, we were there with a brand new car, and we still need to understand the full potential of the new chassis, and we were still trying to set up the car in the best way as possible. But in Suzuka, we really fixed all the detail, and the car looks really strong now. And in Sugo, as I said before, will be the last race where the teams that they are behind in the championship will have the chance to come back. So I'm confident because last year in Sugo we were good in both dry and wet condition. In many occasions in Sugo you have rain races, and I'm confident that we might have the chance. In Suzuka we missed to grab 15 points, but in Sugo we might have the chance to come back with, if everything will go well, to even with 20 points or 21 points, and we need to be positive, and I'm looking forward to next Sugo round.
So let's talk about that in a little bit more in-depth detail, where the lay of the land is as a result of this thrilling, fantastic race that we've had at Suzuka. Unfortunate, of course, for the number 23 NISMO crew, but NDDP Racing, the sister crew, still leads the championship despite scoring no points at Suzuka. The Toms crew now creeps up into second position on 45. ARTA's victory puts them straight into third position. Niro Fukuzumi and Hiroki Otsu, of course, taking the win, and in fantastic fashion too. Sekiguchi and Nakayama now to second in the championship after their 10th in the championship, after their second place finish. That really helps them out to close up on Impul. And third in the race, Kazuya Oshima and Kazuya Yamashita. They are now fourth in the standings, 17 away from the lead. Still plenty of points to score with Sugo, Autopolis and Motegi to go. In GT300, it's a dead heat as Takashi Kobayashi and Tsun Kyueda become the first combination to win a second race in a GT300 season since the 2021 season. Ironically enough, the last driver to do that was Niro Fukuzumi, who obviously took the overall win in Suzuka. A good run from Kosuke Matsuda and Natsu Sekiguchi in the J-Lock Lamborghini, and Takuto Uguchi and Hideki Yamachi in the Subaru, finally getting their first podium of the year. That puts them into the top 10 of the standings, but the top 10 cars are separated by 21 points with 3 races still to go. It's still just as open playing field a season as it's ever been. Very excited. Speaking of GT300, we heard news recently, Jamie, of course, the Max Racing team having to withdraw for, we think, the remainder of the season. Certainly haven't had any updates since then. J-Lock obviously keeping the Lamborghini Evo 1 till the end of the season. But this is the point in the year, now that we're getting into September, this is the point in the year when drivers and teams are starting to really cement their plans for the next season. And Max Racing's withdrawal at this pinnacle point in the season, that's actually really going to hamper their progress for 2024.
Yeah, well, from the wording of their statement that they put out, it sounds like they're not going to be back at all. I think this might be the end of the road for the team, unfortunately. I mean, they already overcame the loss of their team owner, Orno-san, last year. He tragically died before the start of the season. They did miss the first race and they came back, completed the season. They had a lot of incidents, and I think they were sort of struggling a little bit for spare parts and things. And then this fire happens during the Fuji race. I mean, we covered it on the last show because we knew that at the very least both of those Tsuchiya operated Supras, the 25 Hoppy car and the 244 Max Racing car, neither of them were going to participate at Suzuka. But it was only a little bit closer, I think, in the week of the race itself that Max Racing actually dropped the bombshell that they're gone. So that's was quite a surprise, really, because they were on the podium, of course, at Okayama with Kimi Asato and Atsushi Miyake. They've been a generally competitive team. I mean, they've not been around that long. They've only made their debut, I believe, in 2020, using the Lexus RCF one season before switching to the Supra. And in that time, they won a race in 2021, and they've generally been a competitive presence in the series. But I do wonder whether the death of Orno-san last year kind of just put them in kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but probably not at full fighting strength, and just sort of continuing in honour of his memory, but maybe not quite with the same impetus they had before that. So the
Kind of
fire
seems like you're trying to say almost that it's melancholic.
Yeah, the fire on the 244 car didn't seem that bad. I mean, it was nowhere near as big as the blaze that consumed the 25 Hoppy car. So I think people were expecting that it could be repaired, that it would be repaired. I don't know whether Studio Engineering losing both cars at the same time had any bearing on it, because of course you would expect them to prioritize their own car. I mean, that is Studio-san's kind of pride and joy, and he will want the 25 car. We know that's out for the season as well. So I do wonder whether that had an influence. But yeah, I think it's the end of the road, and it's a shame that they had a short but competitive history. Two very good drivers. I especially hope that Atsushi Miyake finds another drive, because I think he's been a really good addition to the grid. But it does open up the possibility for a new team to come along and take their place next year, of course.
Certainly does. So we go from slightly down-tempo news to slightly exciting and aspirant news, and it involves yourself, Mr. Quintarelli, because by the time this program goes out, you would have got behind the wheel of next year's Nissan for the very first time. So just explain to us a little bit how your thoughts are in the build-up to that, what you're hoping to get out of it, what the program so far suggests to you, what your impressions are about getting behind the wheel.
Yes, I think in early August it was the first shakedown for the new cars in Okayama. Nissan was there with the new Z with Bridgestone tires, and next week we will be in Motegi, the first time for me and for my teammate Sugio to get behind the wheel with Michelin tires. It would be good, to compare the new car with the same tires. And the regulation and the shape of the car, the base seams are really close, but the downforce seems quite different. I've been talking with our engineers, especially the one that they are working on the aerodynamic side. They said that they've been trying to maximize especially the front section of the cars to get more downforce. And of course, Motegi, we will test in Motegi next week, and there will be also other cars to test tires. I mean, the actual cars, they will be there to test, and it would be a good comparison to check the potential of the car. Of course, on the aerodynamic side, Motegi can give you some information, but it's not the proper circuit to really give a final judge on their aerodynamic side in terms of full potential. I mean, if you go like Suzuka or Autopolis, this kind of circuit they are giving, more precise information, but it would be still nice to test in Motegi and to have the first impression behind the wheel with the new car.
Well, Ronnie, we would be really wasting the opportunity of having you as a guest if we didn't ask you some of the burning questions that both us and the fans will want to know about your time in Super GT. You've basically been here not quite since the beginning of Super GT, but certainly for a very long time now, 15 years as a competitive driver in GT 500. Your first title obviously coming in 2011. And you've seen the sport adapt and evolve and go through various different changes and different adaptations. What have you found to be the biggest changes since your time in Super GT, and what do you still get a buzz about it?
I still remember we had in my Super GT career, have been experiencing two big steps. The first one was when I had my first drive after winning the Formula 3 Championship in 2004. In 2005, I was driving with the supercar. And I still remember that jumping from a Formula car, from Formula 3, that is really a real racing car. When I jump into the supercar, still the regulation, they are completely different compared to after track cars. They were really touring cars. And the step was very big. It was not easy for me, coming from karting, Formula 3 to drive this kind of touring car, a lot of overall. It was not easy to adapt to my driving style, but I remember in 2008 when I became a Nissan driver with the new R35 with the new GTR. The car was completely new, and the car was with carbon monocoque. When I had my first test with that car, I felt the car like to drive Formula 3. I could start to to enjoy my driving, even with Super GT cars. And with that regulation car, as you said before, in 2011, I could win my first title in Super GT with the Team S-Road Mola. And I've been enjoying a lot those seasons with GTR, with the previous regulation. And another big step was in 2014 when Super GT joined the Class 1 together with the same like DTM regulation. And in 2014, the biggest step was the under aerodynamic side, huge downforce. I still remember when I had my first test in Suzuka with the new car. I was really impressed about the huge amount of downforce. And the lap times. I thought with the older generation car, the lap time was quite quick, but actually when since 2014 we kept improving, and now we are, I would say in Suzuka we are almost 5, 6, 7 seconds quicker compared like 15 years ago. So the cars now are really amazing to drive in these years.
And one of the things I've always found really interesting about your career path is that, like many Italians, you obviously went through the karting route. Being a karting commentator, you always look back through the archives and, you were there in the Sigfia days in the mid-2000s, moving your way up through the ladder like everybody else was, the late 90s, racing against some of the most incredible karting drivers in history. You've come up through that same ladder, and here you are in Japan, and you've been here for a long time now. It's very unusual that a driver chooses to settle for so long coming from Europe into Japan. What was the driving force behind it? Was it the culture? Was it the cars? Was it the start of the racing? What really drew you to stay in Japan?
I still remember the first time I came to Japan. It was in 1996 for the Suzuka World Cup in karting. I was coming to Japan every season for 1 week since 1996 until I think 98 for 3 seasons in a row. For the World Cup, I had a very good impression about Japan, but honestly, in those years, I never thought that one day I was coming to Spain to live here. And there is many reasons because I've chosen to come to Japan and to live here and to base my motorsport life in this country. I would say that my first impression when I came here in karting. Then I remember when I was still racing Europe with karting, there was an Italian racing driver, a friend of mine that was driving for Thomas in Formula 3. Paolo Montini is the name. And he was talking about Japanese motorsport in Formula 3 in a very good way. I still remember they were talking about the Macau Grand Prix at the end of the season. If you do well in Macau, you might have the chance to drive for Thomas. I mean, all these kind of things that... they were like not if you bring budget. It was like if you do well, if you show your speed, your commitment, you might have the chance to become a professional driver. And when I had the chance to come to Japan to drive Formula 3, actually it was thanks to my result in karting in 2002 when I was leading the World Championship. There was a guy that used to drive in Japan that he was trying to find foreign drivers to bring to Japan. When he gave me the chance, he said, if you want, we can go to Japan, you might have a test with Formula 3. I was very happy about that. And when I came here to test in Formula 3, my first impression was like as I was expecting. It was like if you do well, the people here it's like pure motorsport. They are judging you not for the budget you are bringing, but for the quality you have. And of course, on driving side, even on human side, Japanese people, they are like judging you. And this kind of, especially their mentality and of course the passion for motorsport, because it's, as Jamie, I think he could notice in all these years, in Japan it's not like the show you put in the paddock behind the pit. It's about the show you put in the pit and on track, because they are, the competition between tire manufacturers, like everybody focused on the car, to build up the quickest car and the more performing car. And all this kind of this motorsport, which is quite different compared to Europe, is like in Europe maybe 40, 50 years ago, not to have a very clean, the biggest hospitality in the back, but to put the energy on track. And, when you are seeing the races on TV or what is all the show that is going on track is so exciting, to experience that. And when you are behind the wheel, like to work with the engineering, with all the engineers about to try to improve the car on tire manufacturer side is something, for a racing driver, this is the maximum you can experience.
So essentially, it's kind of like the old school thinking of prioritizing the passion for the sport and the workings of the car rather than the whole ethos of being a racing driver in a modern world.
Yeah, that's right.
It's fascinating. It's a really good way of explaining it. It's funny, when I came into Super GT for the first time and I started, learning about the teams, it's sort of Honda, Toyota, Nissan, the first thing I said to myself about Nissan was, oh, that's the team that Ronnie Quintarelli drives for. It's kind of like you've been part of the DNA now of the team. You're almost embedded into the furniture at Nissan. What is it that still gives you that motivation into your early 40s racing in Super GT?
When I came to Japan at the beginning, I was driving Formula 3, but at the same time, I was watching Super GT races on TV. Everything is in live here in Japan. And I could see on TV at first that Nissan NISMO was something different compared to the other manufacturer. You could see the passion and even with the supporters. I still remember when I went to watch a race. It was when I was driving Formula 3. The first time I went to the circuit, the Nissan fans, they were something different. The support, how they cheer up for their drivers' cars was really amazing. And talking with other people, when I got the offer to move to Nissan, everybody said, they are nice people. They are people that there is no political behind. If you are doing well, they keep you and they give you all the opportunities to do well. And when I moved to Nissan, I could feel this passion for motorsport. Nismo's DNA is really for motorsport. With the people there, I feel that they are very nice people. And what is still keeping my motivation for full attack alive is that this is something that Jamie is asking me sometime. Jamie is asking me why you are still there. How can you be there at your age, still like to fight for victories and championships? And it's like, because when you win, now I have most of the titles in Super GT, 4 titles, and you have of course the races are going on TV, but you have the statistics here in Japan. You have guidebooks. You have who could achieve the most titles, the driver that could achieve the most pole position, the most victories in the championship. And I still feel I can have margin to improve these achievements. And this is what is motivating me. And as long as I feel well on the physical side, I still want to push and to improve personal results. Honestly, I'm working very hard because I still want to win one more championship. Force are not enough safe for the future, I think, to keep my lead, for many years ahead. And under pole position statistic, I'm in second place now behind Tachikawa-san, third for the most victories. And I want to improve my records, personal records. And
fired up by the record books. It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
I love how embedded you are into the culture of the sport as well. You can even hear, even when you speak, Ronnie, you can even hear the Japanese accent is actually coming through speak, which is, I think it's wonderful because there's this whole human element to you kind of devoting your life to racing out here. You've got a really exciting new challenge coming for 2024 as well. Knowing, of course, that the Michelin tire is not going to be on the grid in GT500. So I guess from a racing driver's perspective, knowing that it's all going to change again in terms of feel, is that another added motivation for you? It's kind of like going back and learning it all over again, knowing that the challenge is going to be different with a new car, new tires. It's kind of like hitting the reset button.
Yeah, being sometime, I've been thinking about that because I started to work with Michelin in 2009. So many years with them, all my achievement in Super GT. I mean, the titles has been achieved with Michelin. And honestly, it's still difficult for me to think that from next season I will not work with Michelin anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Our partnerships have been so deep together. Sorry, I'm not thinking about it at the moment. I'm very concentrated, very focused to finish this season in the best ways as possible, and hopefully to, as I said before, to achieve that result, that title with Michelin.
I guess we'll have to ask that question again in December when it's all done and dusted. We'll come back to that, Ronnie. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
For the time being, though, of course, you're absolutely right. We do have a really exciting conclusion to the season. Next time out, of course, we go to Sportsland Sugo, one of my favourite venues for Super GT. You always get a thrilling race here. It's going to be an interesting one, Jamie. I reckon, particularly this time in both classes, looking at the sort of the ebb and flow that we have on this circuit, the potential possibility of rain intervening, which happens a lot at Sugo, how short the nature of the track is, how tough it is on cars. I genuinely have a feeling that going into Sugo, just my instinct tells me we're going to have different winners to what we've seen before in both classes. What would you say?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. It's the last race, as Ronnie mentioned, with the full success ballast. It will be halved for Autopolis, and then it goes entirely for the season finale at Motegi. So it's a good chance, obviously, for the cars that are still light, but equally, this is not the worst track to be carrying ballast at because it is tight. There are not many long straights, and the weight is just not as penalising, and the fuel flow restrictor is not as penalising. We've seen cars that are heavy having success here in the past. I think, it was obviously assisted by the weather, but I think the number 3 car won the race last year with something like 60 kilos on board. So goes to show that it's certainly possible. But I think in terms of candidates for victory, I mean, of course, Ronnie and Sugo are in the perfect position as far as ballast is concerned because they're on 50 kilos, but they're just on the cusp of still no fuel flow restrictors. So, of course, we expect them to be competitive. But I think also Honda had kind of pinpointed this track as a opportunity to make up ground in the championship. Now they've got really 3 cars in the fight with the 16, the number 100, the Kunimitsu car, and the 17 Real Racing car. So I think all 3 of those are possible. We always see Naoki Yamamoto is very, very strong at Sugo, so I think the number 100 is definitely one to look out for. But also, I mean, at the opposite end of the Honda spectrum, the number 8 ARTA car is still languishing on 11 points with no points scored since the opening round for Toshiki Oyu and Tomoki Nojiri, and they had a nightmare race at Suzuka. So for them as well, it's going to be a big opportunity to try and finally reverse the tide while it's got the advantage of the light ballast, and see if they can finally have some luck in that number 8 car.
Well, speaking of Sugo being a circuit that's not too tough on cars with heavy ballast, I mean, Ronnie, you're coming into this weekend. I mean, yes, it's annoying and, really frustrating that the second place at Suzuka is gone, but I guess there's a silver lining because essentially you come into Sugo now with what could have been potentially, 80 kilos of ballast, and now you're only going to carry 50 kilos of ballast. So surely that increases the chances for you guys to get the victory at Sugo.
Yeah, that's right. Under success ballast point of view, we are still with the normal restrictor, fuel restrictor. We've been now keeping this 50 kilos weight since round 3 in Suzuka, and we are trying to move forward, but we have been 3 unfortunately to races. As Jamie said, in Sugo, the ballast in the car might be not penalizing the performance as other circuit, but still you have, especially in Sugo, you have this last corner where is a very quick right-hand corners, stressing a lot the front left tires, and then you have a huge uphill. So in this point, I think to have been running, to have the chance to run with the normal fuel restrictor is giving you some power advantage comparing the other cars that they have like 2 ranks, 3 ranks down. And it would be important, as every time in Super GT, to come there with the right choice in terms of tires. For us, what we are now trying to select the best tires, and still trying to find out how it would be the weather situation as well. And I think potentially in Sugo there will be the car number 8, as you said before, and then the Nissan, the car number 24. You know, they've been doing so well in qualify, but they had some bad races because of the weather in Suzuka. They have been penalized as well. So I guess it would be a nice fight in Sugo between as you said, the Honda number 8, the Nissan 24, and our car. I think it would be a fight between them during the race to try to grab the victory.
Wow, very exciting, and we can't wait for it all to kick off. You guys watching at home can catch all of the action from the 6th round of the Autobag Super GT Series 2023 at Sportsland Sugo on the 16th and 17th of September. All you got to do is get yourself subscribed to motorsport.tv Live's premium subscription, and you can watch it all back live, and you can watch all of the previous races that we've had through the course of the season as well to keep yourself up to date. You've got a little bit of time to prepare for it. What a fabulous opportunity to say a massive thank you to Jamie Klein, my co-commentator, and of course to Ronnie Quintarelli, the legend of Super GT, still chasing title number 5. We're with you, mate. We're sure you've got a great chance before the end of the season. Still a great opportunity. Good luck with it, and you'll have to let us know how the new Nissan drives. We're really excited to get your reaction about that as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Ronnie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Grazie mille tutti. We can't wait to see you guys back at the circuit at Sportsland Sugo. It's going to be a fabulous way to continue the Super GT season. Stick with us on motorsport.tv. You'll catch every single lap of every single race of the 2023 season from myself, from Ronnie Quintarelli, from Jamie Klein. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in Sugo.